Pleasant good day to you. This is Owen McCafferty speaking to you on behalf of Professional Fusion. The title of our discussion relates to technology, the undiscovered country. As it relates to the professions and being bombarded on YouTube and Rumble and a lot of the other social media platforms. There's narratives on artificial intelligence. We've even spoken a bit about it in our narrative, but I wanted to at least discuss for a few minutes some of the items that would relate to technology and how technology has an impact in practices. Just had a discussion with one of our best veterinary practice groups. And in that discussion, there was a query, do you think it's time for us to consider flipping our practice information management system and going to a newer flavor du jour? Because we have one of the best and the most tested practice management systems in place right now, but we think we could be missing out on flipping to a new system. And I thought I'd use this time to go over that because it's an age-old question. I remember back in the early days in Effingham, Illinois, and even before that in New York and in Indianapolis when we had CPM-based systems that were being organized and thought through, that there were queries from clients, do you think it's time for us to flip? And the answer to that question is a pretty simple one. It's the undiscovered country. Those costs, those things that you really didn't anticipate that are brought together when you change your practice management system. I'm speaking about this with 48 years of experience. I remember in the old days when we used to have one-rate systems for cash receipting and summarization. So the whole thing has gone an awful lot of different directions. But let's just think about it. First of all, when you change your practice management system, there will be representations by the new kid on the block. Oh, don't worry about that because we have translation utilities. And we'll be able to take all the information from your present practice management system and flip it into our system, and it will be transparent. You're not even going to notice it. Well, history's proven that to be not necessarily totally accurate. And one of the reasons why it may not be totally accurate is that there are unanticipated variances and little glitches that occur in the translation utility. It's usually met with a lot of excuses. So whenever you change your practice management system, keeping in mind this is a mission critical system, you have to budget a lot of time and a lot of additional man hours to go through the system. Even when the new vendor represents to you, don't worry about it, we'll handle everything. They don't. So we budget when our clients say we want to change practice management systems that the support staff cost and the consultant cost, because outside consultants are always brought in, are pretty huge. The next thing is the coding. Every practice has a culture, and the culture has its own decisions as to how clients will be charged for the provision of medical and surgical care to their pets in veterinary medicine or patients as it would relate to dentistry or human dermatology. But the groupings are becoming a very important feature. If you group and you bundle your fees for services, you've got to be careful that the new system bundles the same way. So a lot of time has to be spent in the translation utility of taking your culture and putting it in the new system. And don't expect this to be done merely by the new software system coming in and saying, oh, don't worry about it, we have generative AI. We'll be able to immediately spot the differences and translate them. The answer is no, that doesn't happen that way. The technology is not as foolproof. There are classic early adopters. Every system will have an early adopter, and every system will have a temple zealot. And that person will say, oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread. We had no problems. And then you find that not necessarily to be true. And part of the reason is because you are a different culture. You're not all a cookie cutter practice group. So again, focusing specifically in dentistry and veterinary medicine, you have to budget quite a bit of additional man hours for the ability to translate from the system that you have and the culture that you have in place to the new system that you are acquiring and the culture that you have in place. So expect when you do make these changes that there's going to be a lot of additional overtime hours. On the issue of staffing, let's go to the next one, and that is the departure of staff members. Whenever you change a software system, that's a traumatic event. And because it is a traumatic event, there are people in your practice that say, I don't need this hassle. And they will leave you to go to another practice that has the old system that you had. So in making a decision to change, and usually change it with a flourish of bravado, saying, I don't care, we're going in the new system. But unfortunately, the staff has a different view, and they may not vocalize that up front. But what you'll see is a lot of people just saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm getting too old for this. So expect when you change systems that there will be an evolution in the change of people in practice. Next issue is training. Whenever you change your software system, there are additional training costs. And they budget in the course of the software purchase a certain amount of training. That amount is not adequate. And the training has to be supplemented with new people coming into the practice. Remember all those older people that are leaving you because they just don't want to hassle with learning a new system. You're going to have to train new people. And unfortunately, when a person leaves you, they don't leave you immediately. They look for that other opportunity preceding to the point. So you may be training somebody who will be departing, and then you have to train somebody who doesn't understand your culture, who's newly hired to be brought into the system. I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but what I am saying is be prepared, because that which you thought that would occur doesn't necessarily happen in the same way. So the human cost is pretty significant in terms of trauma, in terms of trying to get the right people trained, and the departure of people that occur, and the overtime hours, because the system is being adapted will be overtime. Now, let's say you've got the system in place and it's one of the early adopter systems. They haven't really worked out the bugs. My son Hugh and I were talking about that earlier this morning. The ability that any generative AI system or any AI system that's going to use machine learning and bot routines that are embedded in the software to make your life simpler really haven't been worked through yet. And I would discourage you from being a pioneer, from being the early adopter, if you hope to have a practice that's going to be profitable. Let the others take the arrows in the chest and the arrows in the back. You, on the other hand, should be learning from what they say and how they say it. And remember that recommendation of the good friend who says, oh, gee whiz, this is the best thing that I ever did. You got to remember that they're trying to validate a decision that may not necessarily be well thought out. So here's my recommendation. If you're going to hold on to your practice for at least 5 to 6 years, then you would be a candidate for flipping your software system. If you're going to hold your practice between 1 to 3 years thinking that, gee whiz, with this new software, my practice is going to be that much more valuable, my answer to you is no, it's not. Because all of those costs that we just talked about are destroying EBITDA. And you may try to talk yourself into the grave, trying to explain to a third party that this is just a temporary event, an abnormal transactional cost. But still, in the process, they'll be looking a touch askance at it. So, think long and hard. We discourage clients from being an early adopter. We know that it's fun. It's a lot of interest, especially when you go to a meeting of dentists or veterinarians and you crow about going on this new system, and you become the cause célèbre, maybe for that period of time, or maybe the new system might even engage you to go out and talk about their system. Our best recommendation is let's wait. There's going to be a technology meeting in April in Las Vegas, produced through Pet Zone 360. And I probably encourage you to wait on some of your decisions, at least till some of the new technology has had a chance to work its way through the series of dental and veterinary meetings. So you might go to Chicago at the McCormick Center. You might go to VMX or the Western Conference or Wild West or the Pet Zone 360 meeting, just to gain more information. But my recommendation is that you hold off. You might be talking with your fellow members in your management groups and what their experiences are. Hold off for a little bit. Listen to them, encourage them, but don't be flipping your systems immediately. Remember, a change is a costly activity. So with that little caveat and a little timeline of when you should be doing something to affect your EBITDA and your capacity to sustain it and hold your practice, this is Owen McCafferty, and I'd like to say thanks again for tuning in to us.